Russia will continue to send troops home in body bags. Now, he's admitting now outright that they know they killed Russian troops. For the Obama administration, this is the crookedest government the U.S. has ever had in its entire history.
I cannot help asking those who have caused this situation, do you realize now what you've done? Do you realize now what you've done?
Guys, we're at war. Guys, we're at war. This is a major issue. We are definitely at war.
Now we see Putin, he understands what the U.S. is doing, but he's continually trying to promote peace. And we've seen this throughout the years and up until this point. But he understands what the neocons are doing. He understands what they want. They want a nuclear war. The central bankers, the U.S. government, they realize this monetary system, it's at its end. There's nowhere to go with it. There's too much debt. They can't do anything. The central banks are stuck. Yes, they can prop it up for a little bit longer, but they know eventually what's going to happen. It's going to come down and it's going to crash. And they rather bring it down themselves. Putin understands this. The rest of the world understands this. And Putin was out there and he issued a stern warning to the world media, saying that the world is heading down a path that could lead to nuclear war. He was speaking with foreign journalists at St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. This was back on June 17th. And he outlined why he thinks a war between Russia and the West is inevitable.
We know year by year what's going to happen, and they know we know. It's only you that they tell these fables and you buy it and spread it to the citizens of your countries. Your people do not feel a sense of the impending danger. This is what worries me. How do you not understand that the world is being pulled in an irreversible direction? That is the problem. But they pretend like nothing's going on. I don't even know how to get through to you people anymore.
And the big news is, a month later, almost a month later, after we first reported on it, in mid-June, there has been almost no Western coverage of it at all. And that's exactly what Putin was getting at. Whether you love Putin or hate Putin, if the leader of Russia, with thousands of intercontinental ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, is telling the West, I don't know how to get through to you, your media is controlled, you're being manipulated, NATO is putting missiles on our borders, we're having to move missiles in, you've overthrown Ukraine, you're on an offensive, you're funding and protecting radical Islam. Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've done, as he said at the UN, destabilizing the Middle East? Why are you doing this? Where are the sound minds across the political spectrum who should be stopping this?
Then we had Obama write some type of note to Putin saying, listen, we want better coordination between our two countries. We need to go after terrorists. So Putin gave Obama a phone call. And really, when you listen and you hear and you read the transcript of what actually happened, basically Putin is continually telling Obama, listen, you need to separate the terrorists from the moderate rebels, and we can have further cooperation. This whole phone conversation, it looks like this is propaganda, where it's making the U.S. look like, yes, we want to work with Russia. We want to help get those terrorists. Well, that's quite impossible because the U.S. is backing terrorists. Now, they might be switching which terrorists they're backing at certain times. Maybe they're not backing Islamic State anymore. Maybe they're going with al-Nusra and al-Qaeda. And maybe this is why they won't separate the moderate rebels. Because if they keep shuffling the shells around, they're hoping that Putin doesn't understand what's going on here, or anyone else. But we realize what they're doing. They're just moving the moderate rebels in and out of all these different terrorist groups and saying, yeah, they're the moderate rebels. Yeah, they're the moderate rebels. And we can see that eventually this is not going to work anymore.
Another threat that President Obama mentioned was ISIS. Well, who on earth armed them? Who helped to arm the Syrians that were fighting against Assad? Who created the necessary political climate that... Who pushed for the delivery of arms to the area? Do you really not understand as to who is fighting in Syria?
But the issue of a major world leader saying that we're moving to the brink of war, and it's not in our news, that's the big story.
They understand the central bankers, they will not stop. I mean, Putin, China, the rest of the countries, they continually push peace. They say, no, we don't want to get involved. We know you're provoking us. We're not going to grab on. And eventually what's going to happen is that the central bankers will get fed up with this, and they'll have some type of false flag. And they'll just blame it on the country. And Putin railed against the journalists for their tall tales in repeating lies and misinformation provided by the United States government. And he's specifically talking about the anti-ballistic missile system that was constructed in Eastern Europe, which they said this was for Iran. But he said, listen, we had the P5+1 talks. There's no reason to have this anymore. But he understands that this is really for Russia. And he realizes that the central bankers, the US government, they're not going to stop. They have nothing to lose anymore. Their system is done. And they're hoping, if they can cover this up, they're hoping, if they can start a war, that they'll be able to reset the entire system and start all over. This is their hope. This is their dream. And this is their only way out. We can see it. We've been following this for quite a while. We see how they're building up the troops, how they moved a huge amount of military assets, how they're trying to provoke countries into doing something, how they're surrounding China, surrounding Russia, provoking all of these countries. Whatever they had planned, it's not going to work anymore. Because they thought they'd be finished in 2008. They thought they would be in all of these countries. They would have all puppet governments. Everyone would be using the dollar on their natural resources. But it didn't happen. We're in 2016 now, and we're still in Syria. And the prospects of getting Assad out, they do not look good. So the US government, central bankers, they're going to resort to something big, a huge event to shake the world. And as this economy comes down, they will blame this on another country, another group. They have no other choice but to do this.
It shows how incredibly controlled things are. Deutsche Bank, one of the biggest banks in the world, is plunging right now. Much bigger than Lehman Brothers. If it continues, it'll make 2008 look tame in comparison. Elites are building armored fortresses and redoubts all over the world admitting they believe collapse is coming. Governments are digging in. Russia is digging in. Our supposed government is collapsing our borders and bringing people in with diseases and ignoring the Supreme Court rulings. It seems an age of madness.
We're going to provoke an attack because then we will be in power for as long as anyone can imagine.
I want you to listen to John Kirby here and some of the things that John Kirby has to say here as he threatens Russia. Let's hear what he has to say.
We'll continue to exploit the vacuums that are there in Syria to expand their operations.
They're going to exploit it.
Will include, no question, attacks against Russian interests, perhaps even Russian cities. And Russia will continue to send troops home in body bags.
Russia will send troops home in body bags. I mean, I have never seen a more direct threat to the Russian Federation than what I've seen now. But let me tell you why the threat is there. What happened? The United States, although they have claimed, and I love my country, but I do not like the Obama administration. Clearly, this is a regime that is bent on bringing the United States down, and they do not have any regard for the human life whatsoever. To put Americans at risk, whether it be Barack Obama or even Hillary Clinton, they're putting the American people's lives at risk when we could easily have peace with Russia. What is it about Syria that the United States wants so bad to destroy everybody else in order to get it? And yet the Obama administration, as well as the British, they claim, oh, it was an accident that we bombed the Syrian troops. Yes, so we killed 62 Syrian military there. We did, not only did we kill 62 of their troops there, but it also killed Russian and Iranian special forces as well. That's why he said we will continue to send Russians home in body bags. Now, if you notice what Mr. Kirby here had to say, notice it again, listen to him. Let's listen to that again.
Russia will continue to send troops home in body bags here at the State Department.
Russia will continue to send troops home in body bags. Now, he's admitting now outright that they know they killed Russian troops. But anyway, they're going to send them home in body bags. Continued. Notice the word continued. So therefore, he knows he killed them. But Russia didn't take it lying down either. Russia took and struck the Intel Center where there were Mossad, Israeli Mossad agents, there were Saudis, Turkish, United States and British forces were all involved in an intel inside of Aleppo who were directing the Syrian army forces. Now, according to some other news agencies as well, they are stating that the Syrian government, and I think this was on Sputnik, the Syrian government actually has the audio, intercepted audio between the intel group of the US-led coalition and that of the ISIS troops on the ground, that they were preparing to do the attack, and they had them on standby as the U.S. went and struck the positions. Now, the Syrian army has this, so they know it was an intentional attack. And then what happens after that intentional attack by the United States and their coalition? Russia sends cruise missiles into Aleppo and hits the intel. This is why there's been a major blow-up. This is why they said there was such a major issue going on at the UN Security Council meeting when the United States calls for it. And the journalists are all saying something major must have happened in Syria before the U.S. to call for this. Sure it did. The U.S. can't admit to it, because if the U.S. did, then the American people would know that the U.S. is backing sponsored terrorist organization ISIS once again. If you'll notice, he says here,
to exploit the vacuums that are.
He says, we will continue to exploit the vacuums. The point was, the United States is willing to arm the Syrian rebels, ISIS, the moderate groups. Hey, they don't care who it is. They're going to, the vacuums are the people like ISIS. They will exploit it. Well, they just did. They sent them all these Grad launchers. The Free Syrian Army, the rebels, ISIS, none of these guys had these things before, but now they do. Now see, the U.S. is still using the other forces there to do these attacks. How is Russia going to deal with this? It's going to come to the place now where Russia cannot hold back on hitting the moderate rebels that they had said they would not fight against for the sake of the United States. It's going to change. Foreign states have supplied Syrian rebels with surface-to-surface Grad rockets in response to the Russian-backed offensive in Aleppo, according to Fars al-Bayoush, rebel commander of the Free Syrian Army. Rockets for the Grad BM-21 multi-launcher system with ranges of 22 kilometers, 40 kilometers have recently been supplied in excellent quantities, Reuters news agency reported on Wednesday. Guys, we're at war. Guys, we're at war. This is a major issue. We are definitely at war. For the Obama administration, this is the crookedest government the U.S. has ever had in its entire history.